The mysterious meeting. The night was quiet. The farm lay in silence under the cold moonlight. Only the soft sound of the wind moved through the trees. John, the farmer, was finishing his last chores near the barn. He was used to nights like this, calm, empty, and peaceful. But tonight something was different. He felt it before he saw it. As he carried a lantern to the barn door, John noticed a shadow moving along the fence line. At first he thought it was just an animal, maybe a deer looking for food, but the shadow moved strangely, slow and weak, like someone struggling to walk. He narrowed his eyes. This was not an animal. This was a person. John set the lantern higher. The light fell on a figure standing a few feet away. It was a girl. She looked young, maybe 17 or 18, but something about her was not normal. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, and her skin pale as snow. And then he saw her eyes. Strange, glowing faintly, like two small stars hidden in the dark. The girl tried to smile when their eyes met. But it was not a smile of joy. It was a smile of hiding pain. Her lips trembled, her body shook, and yet she forced the expression as if to say, "I am fine." But John was no fool. He had seen hunger before, and he recognized it now. The girl was starving. He stepped closer, but carefully. She looked fragile, like a bird with broken wings. "Are you lost?" John asked gently, his voice low so he would not scare her. The girl said nothing. She only tilted her head and tried again to keep her weak smile. Her hands were hidden in the folds of her clothes, but he noticed the trembling in her fingers. The air grew colder. John felt something unusual in his chest, a mix of fear and pity. This was not an ordinary stranger wandering near his land. Something about her presence was different, almost otherworldly. The lantern light showed her face more clearly now. Her cheeks were hollow and her lips dry. She looked like she had not eaten for days. But there was more. Her skin had faint markings, almost like patterns that were not human. John took a slow breath. "You look hungry," he said softly. For the first time, the girl's eyes widened. Her glowing eyes shined brighter for a second, as if his words had touched something inside her. But still, she shook her head. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to act strong. But her stomach betrayed her. A low, sharp growl echoed in the silence of the night. The farmer's heart ached at the sound. He remembered how his own children, years ago, sometimes went to bed without supper when times were hard. Hunger was a cruel enemy. He could not watch anyone suffer like that, not even a stranger, not even someone so unusual. "I have bread inside," John offered. His hand gestured toward the house, but the girl stepped back. Fear flashed in her eyes. She looked left and right as if checking the shadows, as if someone was following her. John froze. What was she afraid of? Why would a starving girl refuse food? The silence stretched heavy and tense. The girl tried again to smile, but now tears filled her eyes. It was the saddest smile John had ever seen, like someone trying to hide pain too deep to speak of. And then, with a soft, broken voice, she whispered her first word. "Hunters." The sound was weak, almost lost to the wind. John frowned. "Hunters? What hunters?" Before he could ask, the girl's knees bent and she nearly fell. He rushed forward, catching her by the arm. Her skin was strangely cold to the touch, almost unnatural. "Easy there," he said, steadying her. "You're safe here." But as he looked into her glowing eyes again, John knew one thing. This girl was not from any place he had ever known. She carried a secret, a dangerous one, and on this quiet night in the middle of his farm, that secret had just entered his life. John helped the strange girl sit on a wooden stool inside the barn. The lantern light flickered, casting long shadows on the old wooden walls. The girl sat quietly, her head lowered, her thin hands gripping the edge of her torn clothes. She looked so fragile, as if a strong wind could blow her away. Yet, behind her weakness, John sensed a hidden strength. She had not spoken another word since whispering, "Hunters." John walked slowly to a small shelf in the barn, where he kept some food for long nights of work. He picked up a piece of bread and a jar of water. Turning back, he saw the girl's eyes follow the bread just for a second before she quickly looked down again. "You need this," John said gently, holding the food toward her. The girl shook her head. She forced a smile again, that same sad smile, trying to hide the truth. But her body betrayed her. Her hands trembled, her lips were dry, and her stomach made another quiet growl. John's heart ached. He placed the bread on the stool beside her and stepped back, giving her space. "I won't force you," he said softly. But you are hungry. It's all right to eat. For a long moment the girl did not move. The barn was silent except for the crack of the lantern flame. John waited patiently. Then slowly her fingers reached out. They were thin, almost bony, and when she touched the bread she paused as if unsure whether she had the right to take it. Finally she pulled the bread close. She broke off a piece and brought it to her lips. At the first bite her glowing eyes closed and a small shiver ran through her body. She chewed quickly, almost desperately, like someone who had been starving for days. John felt relief. At least she was eating now. He poured water into a tin cup and placed it near her. She grabbed it with both hands and drank fast, drops running down her chin. But then something strange happened. As the girl ate, John noticed her skin. Those faint markings on her arms seemed to brighten just slightly, glowing like soft silver lines. The more she ate, the brighter they became. John's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary girl. Whoever or whatever she was, her body was not human. Still, she ate until the bread was gone. When she finished, she lowered her head, embarrassed. She whispered something, her voice barely audible. "Thank you," John nodded. "You're welcome." He wanted to ask so many questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Who were the hunters she feared? But he stayed silent. He could see she was fragile, not ready to talk. Pushing too hard might scare her away. The girl folded her arms across her chest, pulling her torn clothes tighter as if protecting herself. She sat very still, eyes darting toward the barn door again and again. Every creak of the wood made her flinch. She was afraid, not only of hunger but of something chasing her. John sat on a hay bale across from her. "No one will hurt you here," he said. His voice was calm, but inside he wondered if he was lying. If someone or something was after her, would his farm be safe? The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with something deeper than fear. It was sorrow, like someone who had lost everything. Minutes passed in silence. Finally John spoke again. "My name is John." The girl blinked. For a moment she did not respond. Then she touched her chest lightly and whispered, "Lyra." Her voice was strange, soft but sharp, like music from another world. "Lyra," John repeated, testing the name on his tongue. She nodded faintly. The moment felt almost human. Two strangers exchanging names in the quiet of the barn. But then Lyra's body shook again. She pressed her hands against her stomach, not from hunger this time, but from pain. She bent forward, struggling to breathe. John rushed toward her. "What's wrong?" She shook her head quickly, gasping. "No, they feel me." Her words made no sense, yet they filled John with dread. "Who feels you?" "The hunters," she whispered. Her glowing eyes widened in fear. "They always feel me." "When I eat," John froze. He looked around the barn at the dark woods outside. Could it be true? Could someone somewhere know that she was here, alive and eating? A sudden gust of wind rattled the barn door. Lyra gasped and clutched John's sleeve. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone so weak. "They will come," she said, her voice shaking. "They never stop. They will come." John stared at the trembling girl in his barn, at her glowing eyes and silver-marked skin. His mind raced. He had only tried to help a starving stranger. But now it seemed he had stepped into something far greater. And in the silence of the night, with only the lantern's flame between them and the dark, John realized one truth. This was no ordinary hunger. This was the hunger of another world. The barn was quiet, but the silence did not feel safe. It felt heavy, as if unseen eyes were watching from the darkness outside. John sat on the hay bale, his lantern burning low, while the strange girl, Lyra, leaned against the wooden wall. Her breathing had calmed, but her glowing eyes stayed wide, full of fear. She had eaten, she had spoken, but still she looked as if she was hiding something larger, something dangerous. John wanted answers. He needed to know what kind of trouble had entered his farm tonight. "You said, hunters," he began carefully. "What hunters? Who are they?" Lyra looked down, her fingers tracing the silver patterns on her arms. The markings glowed faintly, alive under her skin. She did not answer at first. It seemed difficult for her to speak. Finally, in her broken English, she whispered, "They, not human, they follow me." "Not human?" John repeated. His chest tightened. He thought about the strange glow in her eyes, the way her skin lit up when she ate. Deep down, he already knew the truth, but hearing her words made his heart pound faster. Lyra raised her eyes slowly. "I not human," she said, the words soft but heavy. The lantern flame flickered as if the air itself reacted. John felt his mouth go dry. He had suspected it, but now it was real. This girl sitting in his barn was not from this world. Then, "What are you?" he asked, her face filled with sadness. She struggled with words, searching for the right ones. "I am from far place, sky home, not here." John's hands tightened on his knees. He wanted to deny it, to call it madness. But the proof was right in front of him, her eyes, her skin, her fear of something not human. She was telling the truth. "Why are you here?" he asked, her voice broke. "War, my home, broken family, gone." She pressed her hand against her chest as if trying to hold back the pain. "I run, I hide. But hunters, they come. Always they come." John listened in silence. He had never heard such sorrow in so few words. A girl from the stars escaping war, chased across the universe, now sitting weak and hungry in his barn. "Hunters," she continued, her voice trembling. "They take my people, use us, sell us. I escape but alone." Her eyes filled with tears, glowing like tiny drops of light. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed, still trying to look strong. But John saw the truth. She was young, scared, and carrying pain far beyond her years. John's thoughts raced. If these hunters were real and not human, then Earth was in danger too. His farm, his home, his quiet life. None of it was safe anymore. "Why me?" he asked softly. "Why come here?" Lyra shook her head. "Not planned, ship. Broken? Fell." She looked toward the sky through the cracks in the barn roof. "This place." Last chance, John exhaled slowly. He wanted to believe she was safe here, but her words haunted him. "They will come. They never stop." He studied her again, the faint glow of her markings, the strange sadness in her eyes. Despite the fear, he felt something else, responsibility. This girl had no one. She was hunted, lost, and hungry. And yet fate had placed her on his land. "You don't need to hide your hunger anymore," he said, his voice firm but kind. "You're safe here. As long as I'm alive, no one will harm you." Lyra's lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, but she whispered, "They stronger. They always win." John shook his head. "Maybe, but I won't let them take you." Not without a fight, the barn fell into silence again. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a branch cracked, just a natural sound maybe. Or maybe not. Lyra's eyes darted to the door. She hugged her knees close, her glowing marks dimming as if fading with her hope. John stood, lifting his lantern. "Rest now," he said. "We'll face tomorrow when it comes." But even as he spoke, his own heart was uneasy. Tomorrow might not wait long. He blew out the lantern and sat near the door, keeping watch. Lyra curled up on the hay, her face half hidden in shadow, her silver markings glowing faintly in the dark. John stared into the night, his hand resting on a pitchfork by the wall. He was only a farmer, not a soldier, not a hero, but something told him that his life was no longer simple. A hidden truth had entered his barn, and with it came danger that stretched beyond the stars. And while Lyra slept, John whispered to himself, almost like a promise, "They'll have to go through me first." The night dragged on, heavy and restless. John sat by the barn door, the pitchfork leaning against his shoulder, his eyes fixed on the woods outside. Every sound of the wind, every rustle of the leaves made his muscles tighten. He had lived on this land for years, but tonight it felt strange. It felt like something was out there. Behind him, Lyra lay curled on the hay. Her breathing was soft but uneven, as though her sleep carried no peace. From time to time, her silver markings glowed faintly, then faded again like the rhythm of a heartbeat. John's mind spun in circles. He had wanted nothing more than a simple life, yet fate had placed this girl, this alien, at his doorstep. He did not fully understand her story, but he knew enough. She was hunted, and those hunters were no ordinary men. The barn creaked. A cold wind slipped through the cracks. John gripped the pitchfork tighter. Suddenly, Lyra gasped and sat upright, her glowing eyes wide with terror. "They near," she whispered, her voice shaking. John turned sharply. "What do you mean?" "You see them?" She shook her head quickly, clutching her arms. "I feel them. Always I feel them. In here." She pressed her hand against her chest. John frowned. "You're saying they're close?" "How close?" Her gaze darted to the barn door, then to the dark sky above. "Not far. Search. Always search. John's blood ran cold. If what she said was true, then danger could be only miles or even minutes away. Why are they after you? He asked firmly. Why you and not someone else? Lyra lowered her head, shame flickering across her face. For a moment she stayed silent, as if deciding whether to trust him. Finally she spoke, her words broken but heavy. I carry light, she whispered. Inside me, my people. Call it soul and power of stars. Hunters want it. They use it to make war, to rule. John stared at her glowing markings. The truth hit him like a hammer. The glow was not just strange biology, it was power. Real power. Something people or monsters would kill for. You mean to tell me, John said slowly, that you've got something inside you that can give them more strength? More weapons? Lyra nodded weakly. Her hands trembled as she hugged her knees. They kill for it. They take children, drain the light. I run, I hide, but alone, hard. Her voice broke, and for the first time John saw not just fear in her eyes, but guilt. She carried not only her own pain, but the weight of others who had not escaped. John felt his chest tighten. He had no knowledge of stars or alien wars, but he knew evil when he heard it. And this was evil. He crouched down in front of her, meeting her glowing eyes. Listen to me. You're not alone anymore. You hear me? They may be strong, but they haven't met me yet. Lyra blinked, confusion mixing with disbelief. You to fight them? You human, they many. They strong? John gave a rough smile. Doesn't matter. This is my land, and anyone who comes here to harm you has to face me first. The barn fell quiet again. Lyra's lips trembled, but her eyes softened just for a moment. For the first time since she arrived, her body relaxed slightly. Maybe she believed him, or maybe she simply wanted to believe. But peace did not last long. A sudden noise cracked through the night. Not the wind, not an animal. Heavy, metallic, like boots or claws pressing into the earth. John froze. He motioned for Lyra to stay quiet. She pressed her glowing hands against her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. The sound came again. Closer. A faint hum followed, unnatural like machinery. John's heart pounded. He blew out the lantern, throwing the barn into darkness. Only Lyra's faint glow lit the space now, her silver markings like soft lines of moonlight. They hear, she mouthed silently, tears in her eyes. John gripped the pitchfork with both hands, standing between her and the door. He could feel his pulse in his throat. The noises outside grew louder. Shadows passed across the thin cracks of the wooden wall. Multiple shapes, tall, broad, moving with precision. John's breath slowed. He had hunted wolves before, had even faced down thieves on his land once. But this was different. Whoever was outside was not human. He could feel it in the air, heavy and sharp like the moment before a storm breaks. Behind him, Lyra's whisper trembled in the dark. If they take me, they kill you too. John did not look back. His eyes stayed on the door. His voice was low, steady, and hard. Let them try. The barn shuddered suddenly as if something had brushed against it. Hay fell from the rafters. A low growl, metallic and inhuman, slid through the cracks. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, tears running down her glowing cheeks. John planted his feet, raising the pitchfork like a spear. The hunters had arrived, and in that moment John knew the quiet life he once had was gone forever. The barn walls shook again. Dust drifted from the rafters as the strange sounds outside grew clearer. Heavy footsteps, the scrape of metal against wood, and that low mechanical hum. John's grip on the pitchfork tightened. His palms were sweaty, but his stance was firm. He had never faced anything like this before, but instinct told him to stand his ground. Behind him, Lyra crouched low, her silver markings glowing faintly in the dark. She clutched her knees to her chest, her breathing fast and shallow. Her glowing eyes darted toward the cracks in the wall where shifting shadows moved. They find me, she whispered. Her voice trembled, full of dread. No more hiding. John didn't look back. His eyes stayed on the door, his jaw set. Then let's make sure they don't take you. The noises circled the barn now. Whatever was outside wasn't in a hurry. They were searching, moving with patience like predators playing with prey. John's heart pounded. He could hear his own breath. Every sense told him to run, to grab the girl and flee into the woods. But deep down he knew they'd be caught. These hunters weren't like men. They moved differently, faster, stronger. Running wouldn't work. A sharp metallic sound rang out, a claw or weapon scraping against the barn door. Lyra gasped and pressed herself deeper into the shadows. John raised the pitchfork higher, ready. Then came a sound that froze his blood. A voice. It wasn't human. It was deep, guttural, and broken like metal grinding on stone. The words were strange, but the meaning was clear. They were calling for Lyra. Her eyes widened. They know. They feel my light. John turned his head slightly. Then stay behind me. The hunters moved closer. Their heavy footsteps thudded against the earth, circling, testing the barn. The wooden planks creaked under the pressure. John prayed they would hold, but he knew they wouldn't last long. He looked back at Lyra. Her eyes glowed brighter now, panic rising. They strong. You cannot fight them. John gave a hard smile. Maybe, but I'll slow them down. Long enough to get you out. Her lips trembled. Why, you don't know me. His voice was steady. Because you're alive. And because no one deserves to be hunted. For the first time, her eyes softened with something beyond fear. Something like hope. The barn shook violently as one of the hunters slammed against the wall. Wood splintered. A sharp beam of blue light pierced through a crack, sweeping across the barn like a searchlight. It missed Lyra by inches. John's breath caught. These creatures had technology far beyond anything he had seen. Weapons, machines. He was only a farmer with a pitchfork. But still he planted his feet and refused to move. The voice outside growled again, louder this time, followed by a chorus of similar sounds. They weren't alone. There were many of them. John's mind raced. He needed a plan. He scanned the barn quickly. The hay bales, the old tools, the oil lamp he had blown out earlier. His eyes stopped on the lantern. An idea sparked. He grabbed the lantern, splashed the oil across the barn door, and held the flame close. If they come through, he whispered to himself, they'll get fire. Behind him, Lyra shook her head. Fire won't stop them. Only light stronger. She pressed her glowing hands against her chest as if trying to control the energy inside her. John glanced at her. Then maybe your light and my fire together will slow them down. Before she could answer, the barn door cracked. A massive claw tore through the wood, splinters flying across the floor. Lyra screamed and covered her head. John stepped forward, raising the pitchfork in one hand and the lantern in the other. Through the hole, John saw it, a figure taller than any man, covered in dark armor, its eyes glowing red like burning coals, its clawed hand pulled back, ready to strike again. John's chest tightened, but he didn't step back. Instead, he shouted with all the strength he had, "You want her, you come through me first." The creature paused, its red eyes fixing on him through the crack. For a moment, silence filled the barn. Then, with a roar that shook the ground, the hunter slammed against the door again. The wood groaned, ready to break. Lyra cried out, her body glowing brighter as fear triggered her hidden power. Silver light burst from her markings, filling the barn with an unearthly glow. John turned, stunned. The light was beautiful, like starlight captured in human form. But it wasn't just beautiful, it was powerful. The air around her vibrated with energy. The hunters outside roared in response. They had felt it too. The Solon, the power they wanted, was shining. John faced the door again, his grip firm, his courage burning hotter than the lantern flame. He knew the storm had finally come, and he knew one thing with absolute certainty. This night his farm would never be the same again. The barn was alive with tension. Dust floated in the faint silver glow coming from Lyra's markings. Her energy pulsed like a heartbeat, flickering in response to the hunters outside. Every groan of the wooden walls made John's stomach tighten. He had never been a hero. He had never fought anything more dangerous than wild animals. But now, standing between a young alien girl and unknown hunters, he felt something awaken inside him. Fear was there, yes, but so was courage, John. Lyra whispered, her glowing eyes wide. They are too strong. They break wood. They kill humans easily. He shook his head, gripping the pitchfork with both hands. I know, he said calmly. But they haven't met me yet. The barn door creaked again, a long, deep scrape that made the floor shiver under John's feet. Shadows moved behind the wood, tall, fast, unnatural. John's mind raced. There were too many of them to fight physically. But he realized something. The hunters relied on fear. If he stayed calm, stayed clever, he could protect Lyra long enough to escape or even turn the tables. Listen, he whispered to Lyra. I can't stop all of them, but I can slow them. You have to trust me. Her eyes flickered. Doubt and fear mixed with the faintest spark of hope. She nodded slowly. The first hunter slammed its clawed hand against the barn door again. Wood splintered, but John held his ground. He jabbed the pitchfork into a beam, keeping it from falling. Sparks flew from the metal claw, and the hunter hissed, recoiling slightly. John's heart pounded. He had never faced anything like this. Yet every moment his determination grew. This was not just about him or his farm. It was about protecting someone innocent, someone who had nowhere else to go. Another shadow moved closer. 2 more hunters circled the barn, their glowing red eyes scanning the darkness. John realized quickly that they could not be fought in a normal way. He needed to think. "Lyra," he said, keeping his voice calm but firm, "I need you to use your light, not to fight, just to scare them. Show them you're not alone." She hesitated. Her glowing markings brightened slightly, then dimmed. She pressed her hands against her chest, whispering words John did not understand. A pulse of silver energy shot from her body, faint but visible. The hunters hissed and recoiled. It was enough. Just enough to make them hesitate. John took his chance. He grabbed an old lantern and swung it, igniting a small pile of hay near the door. Flames licked the edges of the wood, sending smoke curling into the barn. The hunters roared in anger, stepping back from the heat and the light. John's breath came fast, but he felt a thrill of power. Together with Lyra's glow, he had managed to create a defense, not a strong one, but enough to buy time. "Good," he said quietly. "Keep glowing. Don't stop." Lyra's fear began to fade, replaced by determination. Her silver markings shone brighter, radiating warmth and energy. John noticed something new. Her glow reacted to his courage. Somehow her power strengthened when he acted bravely. The hunters outside hissed again. One slammed against the barn with a deafening crash, splintering more wood. The building groaned as if warning them that it could not hold much longer. John tightened his grip on the pitchfork and took a deep breath. His hands were sweaty. His muscles screamed, but he felt alive in a way he had never known. He was not a soldier. He was a farmer. But in this moment he was more than that. He was a protector. The largest hunter stepped closer, its red eyes fixed on him. It raised its massive claw, ready to tear through the barn wall. John stepped forward. Not with fear, not with hesitation. He planted his feet firmly and raised the pitchfork. "Stay behind me, Lyra," he shouted. "I'm not letting them take you." For a moment everything seemed to stop. The barn trembled. The hunters froze, sensing his determination. Lyra's light flared, filling the barn with a blinding silver glow. It was not enough to destroy them, but it made them hesitate. John swung the pitchfork at the largest claw, hitting it with all his strength. Sparks flew. The hunter recoiled, startled. It had expected fear, but found none. "You hear me?" "You don't scare me!" John shouted. His voice echoed through the barn, steady and strong. Lyra's glow intensified even more, reacting to the courage in his heart. The combination of human bravery and alien light created a force that seemed larger than the two of them. The hunters hissed and backed away slightly. They had not expected this. They had not expected a human to fight. Not like this. John took a deep breath and looked at Lyra. "We can do this. Together." She nodded, her glowing eyes shining with trust. For the first time since she arrived, she did not hide her fear. Together they were ready to face whatever came through the barn door. And outside in the dark woods the hunters paused. They sensed the courage, the light, the unexpected resistance. They had never met a human like this. The storm had arrived. And John, a simple farmer, had chosen to stand in its center. The night had reached its peak. The barn creaked and groaned under the tension of fear, fire, and alien energy. The smell of smoke mixed with the earthy scent of the old farm, creating a sharp edge that made John's senses scream. Outside, the sounds of the hunters were closer than ever, metal scraping, claws digging into wood and earth, low growls vibrating the ground. John stood in the center of the barn, pitchfork in one hand, lantern in the other. His chest heaved, sweat running down his face. He had never felt more alive or more terrified. Behind him, Lyra crouched on the hay, her glowing silver markings pulsating in rhythm with her heartbeat. She pressed her hands against her chest, her breathing fast. The hunters were not waiting any longer. They had arrived, and they were more than he had imagined. Shadows moved outside, but now he could see shapes through the cracks in the barn walls. Dozens of them. Not human, not animals. Towering figures armed with claws, weapons, and armor that reflected the faint silver glow from Lyra. Their eyes glowed red, burning like embers in the night. John's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, but he couldn't, not now. Lyra's life, and perhaps something far greater than either of them, depended on his courage. "They are many," Lyra whispered, fear trembling in her voice. "Too many. We cannot—" John cut her off, his voice steady. "We can. Together, trust me." Her eyes softened. She nodded, her glowing light growing brighter. The hunters hissed in response, sensing the combination of human courage and alien power. Suddenly, the largest hunter stepped forward. Its massive claw tore through the barn wall, splintering the wood. Dust and debris filled the air. John barely moved, using the pitchfork to block the blow. Sparks flew and the metal screeched as claw met iron. "You don't scare me," John shouted. His voice was raw, filled with determination. Lyra's silver glow flared dramatically, her light weaving around him like a shield. The energy from her power seemed to merge with his courage, creating a protective barrier neither of them fully understood. The hunters recoiled slightly, their red eyes narrowing with frustration. Outside, more of them moved forward. Dozens of figures now encircled the barn, claws and weapons ready, their glowing eyes fixed on the girl and the human who dared to defy them. John's heart pounded, but he refused to show fear. Every breath, every heartbeat fed his resolve. He knew they were outmatched physically, but courage and strategy could buy them time. He glanced at Lyra. "We need a plan," he whispered, keeping his voice calm. Lyra's glowing eyes scanned the barn and then at him. I can use more light, stronger, but you must—" Her voice trailed off. She was afraid of her own power, afraid it could hurt him. "I trust you," John said. "Now do it." Lyra pressed her hands against her chest. Her silver markings burst into brilliance, the light filling every corner of the barn. It was blinding, radiant, almost like a star had fallen into the room. The hunters hissed and roared, shielding their eyes from the sudden flare. John took advantage of the moment. With a fierce yell, he lunged forward with his pitchfork, striking one of the hunters who had broken through the outer wall. He wasn't strong, but he was determined. His courage, fueled by the need to protect Lyra, made him fearless. The hunter stumbled back, surprised by the human's audacity. Outside, the other hunters faltered too, unsure how to approach the barn against the combined force of human bravery and alien power. Lyra's energy pulsed faster, brighter, like a heartbeat syncing with John's own courage. Together they created a wall of light and defiance. The hunters roared, frustrated and angry, but they could not advance. "Not yet," John shouted over the chaos. "You won't take her." "Not tonight." "Not while I'm standing here." The barn walls trembled under the pressure. Splinters fell like rain. Flames from the hay flickered and danced in the silver light, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Then, a deafening sound, a roar, metallic and deep, came from the largest hunter outside. Its clawed hands pounded the barn roof, cracking the old wood. Dust fell from above. John ducked, narrowly avoiding a heavy beam that fell beside him. Lyra screamed as the roof cracked above her, her glow flaring even stronger. The barn shook violently. John grabbed her hand. "We move together," he shouted. "Now!" They ran toward the back of the barn where an old trapdoor led to the cellar. Lyra's light guided them through the darkness, keeping the hunters at bay just long enough. Behind them, the hunters pounded the barn, claws tearing through wood, their red eyes glowing with fury. As they disappeared into the cellar, John looked back one last time. The barn was half destroyed, smoke rising, the hunters circling, waiting. But he knew something. Tonight they had not won, and Lyra, the alien girl with the hidden light, had found something stronger than fear. She had found a protector, and he had found courage he never knew he had. Outside, the hunters roared in frustration, but John and Lyra had disappeared into the shadows, ready to fight another day. The storm had arrived, and the real battle was only beginning.